The moment the grand hall fell silent, it felt as though the air itself was holding its breath. Chandeliers glowed softly above polished marble floors, casting golden reflections over silk gowns, tailored suits, and faces filled with expectation. Rows of guests sat frozen, waiting for a choice that everyone believed was already decided. This was not just a meeting between nobility and tradition. It was a moment that would quietly change lives forever. At the center of the hall stood the Duke of Hawthorne, Alaric Hawthorne, known across the region not only for his wealth, but for his quiet principles. He was a man who didn't speak often, but when he did, people listened. And today, he had come to the Whitmore estate for a purpose no one dared to pretend wasn't obvious. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us true worth goes deeper than appearances, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts around the world. The Whitmore family was known for their name, their grand estate, and their desperate need to stay relevant among the elite. And they had something to offer the Duke. 2 daughters. Celine Whitmore, the elder, was the kind of beauty people wrote poems about. She was admired everywhere she went. Her laugh was practiced, her smile flawless, her confidence so effortless. People assumed she was born destined for greatness. And then there was Mara Whitmore, the younger sister, the quiet one, the one who stood just behind Celine in every room, not because she wanted to, but because life had trained her to. Mara had learned early what it meant to be invisible without ever leaving the room. While Celine was guided toward ballrooms and admiration, Mara found comfort in the estate's gardens and libraries. She didn't demand attention. She didn't interrupt conversations that flowed past her like she wasn't there. She simply existed softly, carrying herself with a calm dignity no one seemed to notice. Their father, Aldrich Whitmore, did notice, but not in the way a father should. To Aldrich, success was something you displayed, something you wore like jewelry. And in his eyes, Celine was his masterpiece. Mara was merely a shadow. That afternoon, as servants rushed to set the hall perfectly and guests whispered excitedly, Aldrich stood proudly at the entrance, waiting for the Duke. When Alaric Hawthorne arrived, silence swept over the room like a wave. Aldrich stepped forward immediately, wearing the confident smile of a man who believed everything was under control. "Your Grace," he greeted warmly, as if welcoming an old friend. "What an honor! We've prepared everything for your visit." The Duke nodded politely, his gaze calm and unreadable. Aldrich wasted no time. He began speaking at length about family legacy, prosperity, lineage, and the importance of outward excellence. His voice carried through the hall like a rehearsed performance. And then, with a decisive gesture, he presented Celine. "There she is," Aldrich said proudly, his tone almost triumphant. "The jewel of the Whitmore name." Celine stepped forward, dazzling in a gown that shimmered like starlight. She offered the Duke a graceful smile, perfectly timed, perfectly practiced. And then Aldrich leaned closer. Not quietly enough. "Take the pretty one," he said, as if it was the most natural instruction in the world. A few guests chuckled softly, nodding like it was obvious. The Duke remained still, but his eyes shifted. They moved past Celine's polished posture and flawless beauty, past the crowd, and landed on the edge of the room, where Mara stood. Hands folded gently, shoulders relaxed, not from weakness but from acceptance. Her eyes were thoughtful, almost distant, as though she had already prepared herself to disappear again once this moment passed. But something about her stillness caught the Duke's attention. It wasn't empty. It was quiet strength. Alaric had seen countless polished faces and rehearsed virtues in his life. But what he rarely encountered was sincerity untouched by performance. His gaze stayed on Mara, longer than anyone expected. The room began to stir with confusion. Celine's smile held, but her eyes flickered slightly, sensing something wasn't going according to plan. Aldrich cleared his throat, stepping forward again, trying to guide the moment back to the script. "My daughter Celine would make a brilliant duchess," he continued, voice louder now. Her beauty alone. But the Duke gently raised his hand. The hall went silent again. And then he spoke. "I appreciate your hospitality, Lord Whitmore," Alaric said calmly. "But I did not come here to choose a painting for my wall." A nervous ripple moved through the guests. Aldrich's smile faltered. "Your Grace?" The Duke's gaze returned to Mara. "I came to meet a person," he said. "Someone with depth. Someone with truth." Mara's breath caught. She wasn't prepared for attention, least of all this kind. The Duke took a slow step forward. Then another, until he stood in the center of the hall and turned slightly toward Mara. "And I believe," he said clearly, "that person is Mara Whitmore." The reaction was immediate. A shockwave of whispers rolled across the room. Murmurs rippled through the guests, as if the entire hall had forgotten how to breathe. Aldrich looked as though someone had struck him. Celine remained composed, but surprise flashed across her face like a crack in glass. And Mara felt time slow. Her heart raced, not from excitement, but disbelief. She had spent her whole life being overlooked. Now the Duke, one of the most powerful men in the region, had chosen her. Not the admired sister, not the pretty one, but the rejected one. In the days that followed, the estate buzzed like a beehive. People whispered theories. Why would a duke choose the quiet daughter? Perhaps she cast a spell. Perhaps he's making a statement. Some doubted the decision entirely. Others mocked it quietly. And Aldrich Whitmore, desperate to save face, tried to hide his disappointment behind forced politeness. But Mara felt it, the weight of judgment pressing on her from all sides. She questioned herself in the mirror. Was she truly worthy of this? Or was she simply about to become the newest scandal? But Alaric did something no one expected. He did not parade her like a trophy. He did not demand she become someone else. Instead, he took time to know her. He walked with her through the gardens. He asked about the books she loved. He listened when she spoke softly about the estate workers, the forgotten servants, the ones no one thanked. And he watched how she treated them, with kindness that didn't seek praise. Mara, in return, saw something rare in him. A man whose authority came from responsibility, not pride. A man who valued depth over display. And slowly something began to change. Not just in Mara, but in everyone around her. Staff members who had long noticed Mara's quiet compassion felt seen through her eyes. Guests who once dismissed her began to notice her insight, her grace, her calm strength. Even Celine, so accustomed to admiration, came to understand something painful, yet freeing. Worth was not a competition. It was a spectrum. And Mara's worth had always been there. It just needed someone willing to see it. Mara's journey was never about becoming someone else. It was about allowing herself to be visible without changing who she was. She learned that rejection had never defined her. It had prepared her. And Alaric, in choosing her, had not rescued her. He had recognized her. Near the end of the celebration that marked their union, Mara stood among the guests and looked around, not with triumph, but gratitude. She wasn't chosen because she fit an image. She was chosen because she embodied something real. And that realization, more than any title or recognition, became her greatest reward. Because sometimes the most powerful choice is not the one everyone expects, but the one that finally sees the person who is always there. Before the story ends, we have one special request. If you believe that quiet hearts deserve recognition too, comment the word "seen" below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the story with someone who needs to remember. You don't have to be the loudest in the room to be the most valuable. Sometimes, the world simply needs the right person to look your way. It was about allowing herself to be visible without changing who she was. She learned that rejection had never defined her. It had prepared her. And Alaric, in choosing her, had not rescued her. He had recognized her. Near the end of the celebration that marked their union, Mara stood among the guests and looked around, not with triumph, but gratitude. She wasn't chosen because she fit an image. She was chosen because she embodied something real. And that realization, more than any title or recognition, became her greatest reward. Because sometimes the most powerful choice is not the one everyone expects, but the one that finally sees the person who is always there. Before the story ends, we have one special request. If you believe that quiet hearts deserve recognition too, comment the word "seen" below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the story with someone who needs to remember. You don't have to be the loudest in the room to be the most valuable. Sometimes the world simply needs the right person to look your way.